Hi everybody, Danny here. So on this video today I'll be talking about periodization. I've been studying sports for more than 10 years now, and periodization is one of the biggest topics out there. But then the thing about periodization or planning is that most of the research we have and most of the things you find online, they're very theoretical. So the goal of this video is showing how to apply periodization models or a very specific periodization model, especially for team sports, but like how to apply those into real sports, right? And not just by reading books. So I've developed a Excel spreadsheet that if you like it, you can buy it later. But the main goal of this video is just showing how to apply those concepts related to periodization. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoy it and I see you later. All right, so periodization, as the name says, so it's about periods, right? So the biggest thing here is we are gonna split up the season into periods. So in this example, in my spreadsheet here, I have like a whole year season. Like in Brazil, we have a volleyball season of 9 or 10 months. Here in the US, it's much shorter. It's about 5 months. So you should change that according to your specific sport here. But the thing is, we are going to divide those periods here. So before we start doing that, let me just give you some basic overview of this spreadsheet. So this is the general overview here. So you can see the year, you can see the competitions and everything else. There's some graphs here. And then, so the second tab here, you can see a plan, a week plan. And so this, you can see every single session that you can plan, your training session. So we have this attendance here, which is kind of important for some people. So you can track attendance here. And so on this tab here, we have the performance assessment. So you can note down here all the metrics, all the performance measurements that you have. Like I'll be talking about them later. So this is kind of the same thing, but for physical assessment, maybe you usually like to measure weight, or anything related to physical attributes here, strength, power, or pain assessment also. So this is just some nomenclature here that we'll be using. There are two references here. 2 years ago, we published a paper kind of reviewing some periodization models. So you can check that here. And then also we kind of explain all of those nomenclatures here. And so the first paper here is a paper on kind of technical periodization, in which I use this nomenclature here. And so, of course, you can check that out later. I have these extras here. So I use those tools a lot here, especially RPE and joint pain here. So this is just the intensity of the session, ranging from 0 to 10. So this is just the muscle soreness, and so this is the joint pain. I like to control those things because those could help us to prevent injury. So those are very important things that we should somehow put them into our planning here. All right. So, okay, you have the season, 5 months or 10 months, it doesn't matter, but you should have a calendar. So, and on that calendar, you should be able to see when the most important competitions are. And so, based on that, so you should find the competitions and then you should plan kind of backwards. So, but the first thing is just take a look at the calendar, check the competitions. Where are those competitions? Check also holidays. So you should have a number like, okay, I know that this season I'm gonna have 100 practices, right? I'm gonna have 20 games, or so everything like that. So you should take a look at the calendar. And then, so the first line here, it serves to add all of those events that you found. So for instance, there's competition here. So you can see events here. So we have all the days of the year here. We have weekdays here. And then you have the events with type, location. Let me zoom in here. Okay, better. So we have events, type, location, and importance. So you can just add them here. So for instance, so this is a youth tournament, a under 14 tournament in Minneapolis, and the importance is slow here. And then here we have a scrimmage. So here we have another tournament. So you can also add like holidays, like maybe there's a holiday here. You can just color this red. You can write maybe holiday, right? So you can do those things here. So this is the first thing you're going to do. So you have to go to your calendar and you have to add the competitions here. And also you should add the importance of those competitions. Like some competitions are more important, some are less important, and it's fine. So just add here. Because based on those competitions, so if they are really important, we have to make sure that when you reach to that competition, the athletes are at their peak. They are performing well. They are, they're playing the game really well. But some competitions, maybe you kind of don't care, right? So just first thing, go to our calendar and then just make sure to add everything here. And then when you go below here, we have some technical and physical assessment. I'll be talking about them later. I just like to leave those here because they are really important. So I like to leave them up high here so I can see them every time. But I'll be talking about them after we talk about those periods here. So, okay, first thing, you determine the competitions, locations, importance, and everything else. And now you have to determine the periods here, right? So we have three main periods. If you guys go here, so we have preparatory, competitive, and transitory. So preparation is, as the name says, so it's a preparation, right? So you are getting prepared for something. And then competitive, so this is when you are in a competition week, or you are working towards that specific competition. And then transitory is like when you are transitioning, maybe your players were on vacation and then you are coming back. You are coming back to practice, so you might use this period here. And so usually what I do is I find the significant competitions. For instance, so this one, so this has a moderate relevance here. And then I usually plan 2 or 3 weeks before that as a competitive period here. So this means that in those weeks, I'll be doing things very similar to the game-like drills most of the time. So this is telling me this because if I am in this competitive period, I'm doing things very related to the game in all aspects, psychological, physical, tactical, physiological, and everything else. And then before that, I would plan this preparatory period here. And then, of course, if you have another important competition here, right, like let's suppose you have something here, so you would do the same thing. So this would be maybe the preparatory period here, right? And then here, you would have a few weeks to prep for this tournament, and so this would be preparatory here, right? So this preparatory. And then this would be again your competitive. And then next we have the phases. And so the idea here is quite similar, but now general means that you are doing general stuff. So you are doing general drills, it's very general. So there's not much here like team specialization now. For instance, in volleyball, we have liberos, we have hitters, But when I write general here, I'm saying that I'm not accounting for all of those differences in my team. I just kind of providing similar stuff for everyone. So this is what this general thing says. And then you have the specific, which is the opposite, right? So now the drills are more specific. So I might have different exercises for the defensive specialists and different exercises for the offensive players, right? So this tells me that now I working kind of maybe in smaller groups or something like that. The other thing is that so this varies a lot according to the age level of your team and the experience. So for novices, it's fine like using lots of general exercises because they're novices. They have to acquire some general sports knowledge, right? So they might do lots of exercises, so they might play different positions, so on and so forth. But as your athletes get better, it doesn't make sense to do lots of general drills. So most of the times, so the practice is really specific, right? So most of the times, really specific. And then we have the microcycles here. And so this is, I like to have a microcycle per week, meaning that in that specific week, I'll be working similarly, doing similar stuff, right? And so the microcycles here, so we have three different microcycles here. So coordination, training, skill adaptability, and performance. So those are from this paper here, technical periodization. And then, so coordination training is the goal of this period is just to develop basic synergies or basic coordination, or giving players some stability. So they should be able to have a consistent movement better. So they should develop this consistency. And so again, this is highly used for novices. So because they don't know how to perform, right? So just think about volleyball, hitting the ball. So they hit like this, and then so using coordination training might help them to develop basic synergies, basic coordination strategies that will allow them to kind of be more consistent. Okay, so in this phase, so exercises are not super complex. They are simple in general, so they don't involve lots of variability. And then skill adaptability. So now you increase variability. So now imagine that you learn how to hit. So the mechanics, you are consistent. So now you should apply the specific skill like hitting volleyball. So with variability, maybe hitting two different directions, maybe changing velocity, changing style. And so that would be the skill adaptability phase. So variability high, really important. Variability should be high. Then we have performance. So performance is just the competitive thing, right? So this is when you put the skill into a real game scenario. So real game-like things here. So if I wanted to practice hitting again, I would have to hit with blockers in a game situation with sets not super good, maybe off the net, or maybe not in that very complex and game scenario. And then so the logic here is quite similar. So if you have competition here, so you would likely use performance here. So at least 2 weeks before the competition, you really have to use just game-like things. So just game-like things, because this is how your players will transfer all of those skills that they learned before into a game scenario, right? So you have to use lots of game-like things here. And also the following row here, I like to have goals for each week, right? So this is just some example, but like the goal for the first week would be just return to basic conditioning. So I would do lots of positioning, lots of movement, very basic things here. And then on the second week, I would work on floor skills. And then of course, so this varies a lot. Then on this week here, I would work on this K1, which is just pass, set, which is serve, pass, set, hit, the first transition in the volleyball game, pass, set, hit. I would do this just because I have a tournament here, which is not my priority, but still I would like to work on this at least 2 sessions here. So it's always good to have, goals for your sessions here. The other thing is Should you plan for the whole season? So I like to define the periods and phases and sometimes even the goals here for the whole season. But this you will likely change. So you should change. Let's suppose maybe you expected that in 1 week the players would develop the specific skill that you fought before, but maybe they didn't, right? And but that skill is so important, so you want to keep working on that. So this should be flexible. So the good periodization should be flexible, right? So this is one of the reasons I kind of don't like the traditional periodization models because they assume that we can predict, and we cannot predict human behavior. It's so complex. And so those subphases here, they are just a subphase from the microcycles here. So if you guys go here to the nomenclature again, so we have 5 different subphases here. And then, so those are related to complexity of the drills, of the exercises, and also they are related to the task representativeness. So exercise could be very low representative, meaning that they're very different than the real game, or they are really similar to the real game. So those exercises would be of high representativeness. And complexity is just how simple the exercise is, right? So some exercises are very simple, so there's no decision making. It's just there's always the same thing to do. And then those highly complex exercises, there are many options. The response is not really clear. So they usually involve different solutions. There are many ways that the player could resolve the task. So those are kind of related to this. I won't be talking about them because I don't want to make this video super long. But you can just check the first paper here and then you are going to have a better understanding of those here. So, and then of course you define those subphases here, which again tells you how those exercises and how the sessions would look like. Okay, so that's the nice thing about having a specific nomenclature here. And then the other thing is I like to define the goal for the specific session, right? And so I usually don't do this for the whole season because this fluctuates a lot, but I do this for at least like I would plan at least 3 weeks ahead. So I would having at least a goal like planning for 3 weeks ahead. And then so every week I would plan the other week. So I don't think it makes sense for you to have goals like for the whole season. Some things they are quite similar, so you might have similar goals. Let me show you an example here. For instance, we have this competitive period here. And so it's likely that on the last week you will be working on the same things, right? Like my case here, I would be working in K1 and K2 here. And then so maybe those would be similar for every competition you have. So of course those you could just add here. But in general, I like to plan 3 weeks ahead. That's the maximum because I feel that it's just really difficult to predict, right? So, and it doesn't make any sense planning everything because you just don't know how players will respond to the training, right? So the other thing we have here, which is really important in my opinion, is the distribution of components of training here. For instance, we have, if you think about team sports and every single sport actually, we have the technical training, we have tactical, physical, and then psychological training, right? So those are the 4 main things here. And then so if you have 2 hours, maybe you can work 50% of the time just on technical stuff. And then 30% on tactical and then 20% on physical. So I like to control this. So those are percentages here, right? So for instance, at the beginning here, I'm working lots on technique and physical. Now working on technical stuff here in general. So this again varies a lot. Uh, based on experience of your players. So you might need more technical training or maybe just more tactical training. Usually, if you have a highly specialized team or a highly experienced team, so you will more likely work lots on tactical here, and then maybe less on technical. Also, these changes. For instance, if you have a competition here, like we can see here, so your focus should be on tactical stuff, right? Because in 1 week or 2 weeks, you cannot really improve lots of technique. It's just not enough. And so it's better, in my opinion, every time, like 1 or 2 weeks before the competition, make sure to work on tactics. You should put your team together. You should test out formations, and you should put those players to play together, especially if we are talking about team sports. So that would be the most important thing here. And so this one, so this is intensity, but don't get kind of don't misunderstand this, because the way I'm putting intensity here is like a perceived intensity or a prescribed intensity. And so this is not related to the volume intensity thing. For instance, if you lift 100 kilos, is more intense than lifting 20 kilos. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about general intensity. So if I were to ask players, okay, how intense was the practice today? So I would expect that for this practice they would say 8, or for this they would say 6, 7. So this is important because this is the general intensity, because the practice can get really intense even if you do like relatively light exercise. But if they are moving a lot, so that makes the practice really intense. So this is the reason I like to use intensity as a single entity here, intensity, instead of thinking about volume, intensity. I think it's much better using intensity as a single thing. And so this is my prescribed intensity. So I would plan here for this session, I'm planning a intensity of 7. So this is important for injury prevention, right? So of course you cannot do like lots of super intense practices like 9. So like here I did 9 and 9. Then of course I have to reduce this 9, and then I have to reduce, and then I have to reduce more because I have a few 9s here. So now I have to reduce. There is a tournament coming. So I like to use intensity in this specific way. You can use volume, you can use intensity differently, but this is how I found to be the most effective way. And also the other thing we have here is the exercise type. I like to consider 3 types of exercise. The introductory exercises, so those are very simple exercises. They are really just to introduce players to some skill. Imagine that you are teaching novices, a really novice player, how to kick a soccer ball. They don't know anything about kicking. So it's likely that you are gonna use very simplistic exercise. So those would be considered introductory. So they are low in complexity. They might be not that similar to the game. So they might be a little bit different than the real skills. So you might simplify the skills somehow. So those are the intro types of exercise. Then we have the advanced. So now the athletes kind of know already the exercise, and they are applying this exercise in many situations, right? And you have the competitive exercise. So those are the same skills that players would do in the game. So very similar to the game. And then this again varies a lot based on the experience and the age of your team. So usually for experienced players, you would not use introductory. So sometimes you would for specific things, but most of the times it's advanced and then competitive here. And then the psychological or meetings here. So I like to put this because some practices I would have conversations with my athletes. So I would consider that as a meeting here, so I would spend 10 minutes of that day to discuss something or to give a specific feedback or to work on motivation or something like that, so you also can add those here or just leave it blank like this. And then here we have the skills. And so you should add the skills relevant to your sport now. So in volleyball, we have those skills here. So serve, pass, setting, attack, block, defense, counter attack. And so I would kind of control them here. And then there are many ways to do that. I like to use like from 0 to 10, meaning that so if I put 10 here, so that means that in that practice, I just did serve. We just practiced serve. We didn't do anything else, right? Didn't do anything else. So you can use like that, like ranging from 0 to 10. Or you can use time, so maybe you spend 10 minutes doing serve, and then you spend 25 minutes doing setting, or 10 minutes doing defense. I like to use um, 0 to 10 because sometimes it's really difficult to quantify, especially in volleyball. So there are lots of compound exercises in which players, at the same time, they are practicing serve, but also they are practicing receiving and setting. So the way I really, the most optimal way for me was just using 0 to 10. It's much more subjective, but it's much more realistic and much more, um, I found it just to be more efficient for me. And then we have these specifics here because maybe in that specific practice you worked with meters, and then you can add here. So I worked on slides, which is a specific play for meters in volleyball, and then maybe setters. You work a specific time with them, working on I don't know accuracy, or something like that. So also you can control those specific things here. And then we have some graphs here. So we have the performance graph that I'll be talking more later, but we have those distribution exercises here, and you should find a pattern here. So because the competition is here, so the competition is here, and so we would expect to do more competitive exercise. See, so we can see that the green lines here, they got bigger here, which makes sense. And which didn't happen here because we didn't give priority to that first competition, right? Same thing here, so you can see the distribution of the aspects of the training, so physical, tactical, and technical here. Again, the blue line, the blue portion here should get bigger as you approach the competition here. And now those rows here, so this is for you to include data here, to include things that you are collecting throughout the whole season, And so those things are really relevant because they will inform you whether you should change your planning or not, okay? So the first chunk here is just a performance assessment. And so there are many ways that you can evaluate team performance, right? Then in volleyball, we usually do this type of scouting here. So this ranges from 0 to 3, and so this is a team average here. And so on the first day, I measured this, and then maybe I did this again here a few weeks after that, so I can see whether players are getting better or not. So specifically to do this, I use a scouting spreadsheet here. So this is available also if you guys want to buy these or for the folks who work with volleyball out there. I'll put a link on the description of the video. So, and then you can purchase this one if you want to use this as well. But I would just copy here, and then I would go to my periodization here, and then I would just paste it here. And then, so this is nice because you have to make sure that you know what the real performance is. And then just measuring this once is not enough. So you should keep doing this because performance changes a lot, especially if you are talking about younger players, right? So the performance is changing every time. So you should make sure that you are evaluating those performances pretty much every time. The more the better. And then, of course, that will inform you about what is the skill that that needs maybe more training, and then you can emphasize that for the following practices. So really important, really important. The way I would do this is I would record my practices. So most of the times I would bring my tripod, I would put my cell phone, and I would record the practices. And then I would give some exercises or some sort of tasks that I could measure that after practice. So I think this is the easiest way to do that because sure, this might take some time, right, to evaluate. But if you have maybe an assistant coach or a camera, just put the camera there and then later you can make this type of assessment here. So the other one, which is so important, especially for injury prevention, is those physical assessments here. So one I would do a lot is the vertical jump. So I would do this at least once a week, like every Friday, I would warm up and then I would measure this. So this is a nice measure to indicate whether your players are getting better, like more powerful, jumping more, but also if they are getting maybe too fatigued, because this is also can indicate some stuff related to muscle condition. And so if this is getting worse and worse and worse, maybe there's something wrong. Maybe you should decrease the loads. Maybe you should change something, right? And so this is kind of the similar idea for the medicine ball throwing here. So this is a test just to measure upper limbs explosiveness. And then we have those three ones here, kind of mentioned them before. I think that they are really important. And so most of the times I would get these after each practice or maybe in the beginning, as long as you are consistent. So muscle soreness. So ask each athlete so how sore they are. Joint pain, whether they have, whether they're feeling some pain or something like that. And also the RPE for each session. So ask your players from 0 to 10, so how intense was the practice for you? And then so those metrics, they could help you a lot. They could help you a lot. And I think they're really, really, really important. So we should do them more times. Okay, so this is everything about this first view here. Again, this is a general overview here. So now we can just briefly discuss the other ones here. So so this is the place where you are going to plan your microcycles here, okay? But this, you don't have to write everything about the session. So I have this, so the weekdays here, Monday through Friday, and then also I have the components of the training here, technique, conditioning, tactics, and then psychological training here. So here you would just write general notes on things that you would work on. Maybe here I would work on serve to position 1, very general, because later you'll be working specifically on this session here. Maybe here you would do, I don't know, squats, variation of squat or something like that. And then some flexibility maybe. And then here, something else, so on and so forth. So this is nice because you can see the microcycle here and then seeing whether it makes sense, right? Because, so maybe I worked on search position 1 here, but then maybe on Tuesday I was thinking about working on something else, but maybe it would be better to keep working on serve. So this is nice because you have a overview of the whole week, and then so now it makes sense working on Monday on this, and then kind of developing the same skill on Tuesday, but maybe making it more complex or something like that, right? And then the other things that you can select is, and then you can print out, can print out those, and then you can put them in a wall and then see whether things make sense. So you have one for each microcycle here. And then here we have the training session. I think this is maybe the most important thing, because even if you plan everything, periods and everything else, thinking long term, if you're not able to come up with a really elegant, efficient training session, you're dead. There's no any improvement there. So this is really important. And then, so this is the template I have been using for the past years. Um, Let me zoom in here. Uh, so this is the template I made. Of course, there are many ways that you guys could do this, but this was the one that I found to be more efficient, very simple, and very useful with just necessary information here. So I would have the 8 period go, volume intensity here. So again, you can use just intensity, number of athletes, name of the coach, and then team. And then, so I would divide my session into 3 parts. So warm up, the main part, and then the final part here. And so the first column here would be, so for the name of the drill, so some people like to use names, like butterfly or X or Y. So you could just add this. So time of beginning, so 2, so at 2 p.m. 14, I would be doing this exercise here. And this is the type of the exercise. So like I discussed before, I for introductory, A for advanced, C for competitive. So, and then I would add those here. And then, so this would be duration, so in minutes, so 10 minutes here. And this would be reps, so R stands for repetitions here. So you can use either repetitions, which I like better, or you could use kind of maybe time doing that, instead of using duration and reps, maybe using just time here. I like to use repetitions because uh, I have to make sure that the athletes are touching the ball every time. And then, so I like to control this thing. And then one way to control this is like in your practice, you are running drills. You ask for one athlete to count how many times the athlete did the exercise, and then you just set a timer for 1 minute. And then after that 1 minute, you ask the specific player, so how many times he did the exercise, or you can count that. So there are many ways that you can estimate like how many reps. I think this is really important because you have to make sure that you are using your time wisely. Sometimes you have a really nice exercise, but actually the players are touching the ball just 1, 2, 3 times, so it's not enough. So you gotta control this thing because it's really important. And then, so you have a goal, of course, for the specific exercise. Then you have a description or development here so that you can explain. And so it's the same for the main part here and then for the final part. And then if you go to the right side here, there's this graph. So you can see in that specific session, like the percentage of exercises that are introductories, advanced, or competitive ones here. So really important. And again, you can print this thing. So I would print this for every practice. And then I would discuss with the athletes before, I would say, okay, today we are going to be doing this, this, and that. And sometimes I would even make some adjustments based on my conversation with my athletes, which is also nice. The athletes feel that they are really important in the whole process. It's not just the coaching saying, oh, you should do this, this, and that. So I would really recommend this, So print them out, bring them to practice, discuss with your athletes. Uh, Really interesting and good stuff. So this is the training session. And then we have the attendance here. And then, of course, you can come up with your legend here, I would add comments here. I would every single time I comment here, well, something happened or, whatever. You can add those things here that it's nice for you to keep notes on those things because they might be issues later, like some parents complain about playing time, and then you can just show the attendance, say, well, maybe the athlete hasn't been showing up a lot, so that's the reason he's playing less or something like that. So attendance might be important for lots of people. So And then, so this is the performance assessment. And then again, so here I would add for each one of those athletes. So this is cool because you can give feedback, right? You can give feedback to the athlete saying, well, we did the evaluations here, and then so this was your performance score. Then we could see that you got better with school, or maybe we could see that this specific skill you should be working more on that. So let's work on that thing, really nice, really important, always giving feedback to the athletes. And so this is a part here that you can also add the results to the athletes here. And then again, in volleyball, I would just do this here. I have my scout spreadsheet here, and then I would, just copy here. And so I would copy this from there to here. And again, for the volleyball people out there, you can buy the other stats spreadsheet as well if you liked it. Again, the link is on the description of the video here. Then the other thing is the physical assessment here. I would add the event, or like where I measured this. Was this doing practice? Was this a competition or something like that? And then again, you have your legend here. I would add things here. Every single session you might add the RPE here, right? So maybe you would just use this column here for most of the times, maybe using just this one. But then on this specific day, you decided to run a full evaluation, lots of tests. So, and then you would have all of those columns here. Okay. Nomenclature here, and then the extra. Well, the video turned out to be longer than I expected, but hopefully you guys understood some basic ideas on periodization and also learned how to make this Excel spreadsheet to apply those concepts. If you like this spreadsheet specifically, I'm selling this one. Links are provided below, so you can check that out later. Okay, so if you guys have questions, please reach out and let's keep in touch. Bye.